the Thessalonian church at Thessalonica. We're going to talk about sort of some of the problems that they had, which, Paul didn't write a letter to a church just because he wanted to say great job all the time. They always had some sort of problem, even if they were a great church. It said in the Seeking the Context, it said, Paul expressed thankfulness for the members of the Thessalonian church, but they were not without their problems. It doesn't matter how good of a person we are, how much good we do in the world, or how much we put out there, we're still all going to have our problems. I have mine just as you have yours. There's days when, it seems like we're doing really good, and, then some days sin is just tripping us up all day, and, that doesn't say we live any perfect days, but, it seems like for us, we do a lot of good some days, and some days are a lot more filled with the bad. But, there's sins that we're unaware of that we do each and every day that we have to ask forgiveness for. But we're all without our problems. It doesn't mean that we're not, for the most part, good. I mean, I guess none are good, but we all, again, we all have our problems. It doesn't matter from the greatest to the least of us. We all have our problems. It wasn't even the apostles didn't go without their problems. We always kind of like read through the Bible and we think of it like a storybook, and we think these guys had like superpowers or something, but they were just regular people, just like me and you. I mean, they did good, but they also did a lot of bad, as we can read through here as well. Let's see. So it says on the top of page 89, it says, consider the many church letters written by the Apostle Paul. Every one of them addresses problems within those churches. Sometimes the problems are so troubling that they require church discipline. And that's something we don't really want to talk about a lot of times, is church discipline in our churches. There's a lot that goes on within the church that sometimes gets swept underneath the rug just to save face and just so we don't, make anyone mad. But sometimes when it gets big enough, we can't worry about making others mad. If they're not doing the will of God and they're putting a bad light on our church, we can't sometimes let that church discipline go. It says, Paul used the word disorderly 3 times in our passage for today. And the word means to be out of rank relating to soldiers or to deviate from the prescribed order of rule. What this means in this context is that there were some among the members of the Thessalonian church who were not following the prescribed order of living as taught by the Apostle Paul. They were not living in accordance with the Word of God. As challenging as it is to carry out church discipline, Paul was confident that the Thessalonians would do what was commanded of them. It seems like we can be watching. So we watch our children, and 1 minute they're doing really good, we turn their back, and the next minute they're, getting into the flour and throwing it all over the kitchen. I mean, it's, sometimes, especially as a young child, you can't self-discipline. You can't have that self-control is not there. And a lot of times with these people, and a lot of times with us, is we're not spiritually mature. We will just fall for any doctrine or anything that comes our way that seems good, but may not actually be the best for us. And I think that's a lot of these churches from Paul. They gave people head of these churches and whatnot, but the people were still immature in their faith and immature in that they just weren't mature yet. A lot of them, so they were living by anybody that come blow in and come in and teach them something new. They're like, oh, well, this must be the way that we're supposed to do it, instead of the way that Paul taught them. Immature Christians can fall to many things in passing. Whatever may sound good to us, whatever sounds good to our flesh, we like to go with a lot of times. I think that's a lot of what these people did is, they did what they thought was right in their own eyes, and that's what we do today as well. If we read the text, it says in verse 6, it says, "Now we command you, brethren, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you withdraw yourselves from every brother that walketh disorderly, and not after the tradition which he received of us. For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. For we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, worketh not at all, but are busybodies. Now them that are such we command and exhort by our Lord Jesus Christ, that with quietness they work and eat their own bread." How many people in our workplace today would we consider busybodies? In our churches, it's like you hear most church like preachers that come in say, it's the 10% rule. 10% of the church does all the work, while the other ones just, don't do anything to do it. And that's not saying that praying for whatever it may be is not important as well. Some people are just not physically able to do the work in the church like they want to or could. Sometimes we just need prayer warriors to pray for these things. But we all have a job when it comes to it, and a lot of us don't want to do our job. We want to let other people do it. You see in verse 6, it says, "Withdraw yourselves from every brother that walketh disorderly." It doesn't matter how much affection you have for that person or how much of a history you have with that person. If they're walking disorderly, if they're walking not in the way that they should, we need to distance ourselves from them. That doesn't mean to totally cut them off and not give them, the words of God, but we can't. If they're wanting to go down to the bar, that doesn't mean we should follow them. We shouldn't. Yeah. I mean, we don't want things to ruin our testimony, and if we're with somebody that's not living the way that God would have them to be, we have to distance ourselves with them. We can tell. Mhm. Mhm. I mean, I can. Yeah. Because we don't want to see any brethren like walk in the darkness. We don't want to see anybody do that, and it's always a tricky line to hold. I mean, because you want to do it like you said. You want to do it out of love, but you also want to be stern with them. You can't. It's like if somebody's doing wrong in this church, be like, listen, you're putting a bad name on the church. We can't be having that sort of stuff. Mm. You know, and it's so easy for us to fall in. I mean, I can think back in school, like, you know, you make you different people, you like get around them and you act totally different just because our human nature is we want to fit in. We don't want to stand out from the crowd. Like we want to feel like we're a part of something. We don't want to be the odd man out. And sometimes we take and that's our flesh and our spirit fighting between each other is we're supposed to stand out, but we want to fit in with the flesh, and it constantly creates that battle there. Because I mean, I'll admit it. I mean, like you just act differently around different people. You know, it is how it is. We're not supposed to. I mean, it's supposed to be me through and through. Just no matter the situation, I'm supposed to do that. But I mean, you find yourself a lot of times you talk differently, you act differently around other groups of people. Mhm. Like you should treat the maintenance worker the same way you treat the CEO. I mean, it doesn't matter. We're not supposed to be a respecter of persons. I mean, it doesn't matter what position you hold. One day we're all going to be held accountable to the same line. It doesn't matter who you were down here. If you didn't follow the line that God provided, oh well, shoo, you're a big Hollywood celebrity. Oh yeah, come on in. You know, you're you don't have to follow these same rules because you were somebody of stature. But it's not how it is. Hey, no, you listen. I welcome it. Listen. When we talk in school, it's all about the student discourse. You want to have conversations between everybody, and that's the way. I mean, that's the way you grow and learn. It's so. I think I learn more during the teaching hour than I do the preaching hour because I'm able to talk and go back and forth and learn and whatever. Not saying you're a bad preacher. I mean, kind of, but no, I'm just kidding. Uh, but I mean, you do learn whenever you can. If I have a question, or whatever, or have a statement to be made, I can do it. I might forget it at the end of the service or whatever it may be, and I never get my question answered, and I should go back and study more and whatever. But that's besides the point. But let's not gloss over this section when it says that if any would not work, neither should he eat. Let's not gloss over that section as well. We spent a lot of time on that first part, but that's a pretty important part. Something that's very relevant in today's age. Now, listen, I won't say that I am the most non-lazy person that there ever was. I won't say that. I have my lazy streaks, just like the rest of us. But I mean, at least I do get up and go to work every day, and I still do those things. But so many today are looking for that handout. They're looking for others to do the work for them, and they know they're going to be still taken care of. We have it so backwards in today's day and age that I'm all for, if you have a disability or you have something where you physically can't work, you're old, you're of older age, you're disabled, you have a mental handicap, whatever it may be, I'm well for it. That we should help those people out. But those that are just too lazy to just don't want to get off their butt to go to work in the morning, I mean, we shouldn't. Yeah, I mean, just you finish. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My question is, even if we did something like this, even if we did something like this, how are you allowed to go get steak dinners and pop and all this stuff? You should have the bare necessities to fill your life. Ain't no steak dinners and Mountain Dew. I mean, it shouldn't be that way, but mm-hmm. It's just, we just have it so backwards. I mean, we just, and not to say that we knew it's coming. I mean, we knew these things are going to come to pass. And again, you say that sort of stuff, but even though we know it's going to happen, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight against it at the same time. We shouldn't just give in and say, well, the world's gone to pot. Well, you just might as well watch it burn. Me and mine are safe, how it is. But, we shouldn't be that way. I mean, there should be some stuff that we should work on as well, for sure. Anybody else have anything about that section? Anybody else? For sure. Okay, let's go on to the next section here. Okay. So if we read on, again, verse 90, or verse 90, but page number 90, it says about, up near the top, it says, so what was the problem? That some of the Thessalonian church members had quit their jobs and were living off the generosity of the church. Going back to what Brother Gary was talking about earlier. Seemingly, this stemmed from the misunderstanding of the return of Christ. Some believed that it was already here or so close that they could quit their jobs and wait out the few days they had left on earth. Furthermore, they had become busybodies, meddling in other people's affairs, as they had become troublemakers. Let's just sit back and watch the view. Yeah, we should be working. Just because it's going to happen doesn't mean we shouldn't. We should be working up until the time more, because we know that it is getting waxing worse and worse. These people out in the world are saying, "Oh, look how great the world is now. We're so inclusive. We're so including of people and all this stuff. The world's getting so much better." But no, it's getting worse and worse. And Christians, we understand that. We should understand that concept, that God is coming and it's getting closer and closer. We should be more willing to work and do and Mhm. Yeah. Um, Read into the next section. It says, "For yourselves know how ye ought to follow us. For we behave not ourselves disorderly among you, neither do we eat any man's bread for naught, but wrought with labor and travail night and day, that we might not be chargeable to any of you, not because we have not power, but to make ourselves an example unto you to follow us." Paul was, a big help in setting up these churches, and he, taught them the ways, and he knows when they're doing wrong. He knows that they've been taught better. How many times when your kid does something that you've told them a million times not to do, you would think they know better by now? I mean, I've taught you, hey, this is not something that you should be doing. You know that it's wrong. I've taught you this. Why do you struggle with this, or why did you do this? Because we've shown it. We've been an example to you, and that's so many times you hear, "Do as I say and not as I do." Yeah, you can say one thing, but if you live the other way, our actions speak a lot louder than our words. If I tell you not to do something, but then I go ahead and do it, well, Mommy, Daddy, why'd you do that? I thought you told me not to. So obviously, just because you did it and I saw it, it must not be that bad. You're saying it, son, don't do it, but it's not that bad. We should be an example to our children, and we should be an example to the lost and dying world around us. We can't be seen doing things that we've preached about. You're reading the Bible, we know that homosexuality is wrong. And if people are practicing that and we don't say anything, I mean, we're just, it's like you've been taught, there's an example to be set there, to know it's not good. In the Bible, it talks about gluttony. And let me tell you, I'm a gluttonous person. That's one of my big things. We want to think about that. We want to think about, it's gluttony, it's food. It's using it towards the nourishment of our bodies. But, and people without the knowledge of the Bible have heard enough to know the things that we should not be doing, and if we still do them, and we're not being an example to them, we're not going to be able to lead them anywhere. We're going to lead them, to hell, and that's going to be something that's going to be charged to our account. It says, the Apostle Paul practiced what he preached. Not only did he tell people what God expected of them, he also exemplified it. Paul had every right as an apostle and founding missionary of the Thessalonian church to be paid for his work. Instead, he did not use this right, but worked night and day, providing his own living while carrying on the ministry of establishing the Thessalonian church. This was not unique in Paul's ministry, but he did the same while in Corinth and in Ephesus. He did so to protect the purity of the gospel and not to become a burden to others? How many, you know, we should provide, some support. We should provide our support to our pastor in our churches, but there should not be a thing as a professional pastor. That's what's your job title? I'm a pastor. I mean, you should. That shouldn't be the only thing that you do in your life. You're supposed to be doing more. Now, when I say that, I'm meaning like living way better than what you should. We shouldn't be some Joel Osteens out here having multi-million-dollar houses. We don't need that to spread the gospel. Now, if we provide our pastor with a nice enough house to live in, a car that's dependable enough to get him from here to there to do God's will, that's great. That's great if we can provide those things. But a small church can't provide those things. Pastor can't just rely on our good deeds and our goodwill to give him. That's not something that he should be expecting of us. And if he is, then he's in the wrong place because we don't have that type of money to give. That's not what we have. See, you're already putting a price on the gospel. Yeah. It's like you shouldn't have, you should have enough money in the bank to, something catastrophic happens to your church. You have enough money to do those things. But but really though, if something like that occurs, God's going to provide a way to, we should be using the money back and forth to provide and do all these things. And like we said, if something major does come up, if we're doing God's will, something's going to happen and it's going to get put together. Yeah. Now, let's see. Let's try to get a couple more of these things in real quick. Okay, let's read the last section. It says, but ye, brethren, be not weary in well-doing. And if any man obey not our word by this epistle, note that man, and have no company with him, that he may be ashamed. Yet count him not as an enemy, but admonish him as a brother. That goes back to what the pastor was talking about. We don't just cut him off totally from our lives, but when he's out doing the things that he shouldn't be, we shouldn't be right behind him. You know, if he's going to the bar, I shouldn't be right behind him saying, brother, don't go in that bar, don't go. Because even if I'm not right behind you, I see you walking into the bar trying to get this guy not to go in there. You know, you shouldn't be following in there trying to witness to him in the bar. It's just not it's not going to work out too well. You know, we should, like it says, not count him as an enemy. We should still love the brother that's fallen by the wayside, or is, you know, we should love them and want to see them do better. You know, if we truly didn't love them, then we would just let them be and not care for them and just let them live in sin like they have been doing. Does anybody have anything today? Anybody else got any words to say? Okay, well, you got about 8 minutes to run around.